Back when I was a sophomore in high school, my family moved to a new city. We lived in the same state, but about 2 hours away from where we used to live, due to my mother changing jobs. I liked the move because we were in an area with more things to do now. Before, we had lived more out in the country. However, what I didn't like was that I didn't know anybody in the area, and I didn't really have any friends yet. I would have to change schools and go to a different high school than I did my freshman year. My old school only had about 50 kids in each grade, and my new school had about 200. When I started out, most people there seemed nice, but I didn't really make any good friends. But about the second week of school, there was a kid who I'm just going to call Joe for this story. Joe was also new to this school. We had a gym class together, and we became friends because we were partners in some gym game that we played. We also had our 5th hour class together, and he quickly became my best friend. Most days, we would talk at any opportunity and would work on homework together during class if the teacher gave us time, things like that. We also would eat at the same lunch table. A few weeks went by, and I started making some new friends, but I still considered Joe to be my best friend. Joe had sort of long brown hair, glasses, and was average height. He was pretty nice for the most part, but he occasionally would say or do some weird things. He and I did not have much in common at all, other than being new students in this school and having 2 classes together. Most of our interests were different. I would say that we mostly just talked about school and just basic stuff. One time Joe said that we should hang out after school, and I told him sure. I gave him my address, and he was going to come over after school on the next Friday. This was probably about a month into the school year now. When Friday arrived, I asked Joe if he was still coming over after school that day. He told me no. He said that he couldn't anymore because he had forgotten about something that he had going on. He said maybe next week though. I wasn't that disappointed, and I would probably just do what I usually did on Friday nights anyways, which was play video games. After school that day, I went home and did just that. I took some breaks to eat and things like that, but luckily for me, I remembered that I didn't have much homework to do at all that weekend. I stayed up sort of late, which I usually did on weekends. I went to bed at probably 1 o'clock in the morning after I got really sleepy. Our house was a 1-story home, and my bedroom was on the front side of the house. My brother's bedroom was next to mine, and my parents' was across the hallway next to the bathroom. After I fell asleep, I woke up to the sound of some noise in my room. I was really disoriented at first, because I must have been sleeping pretty deeply. After hearing another noise, I sat up in my bed to see what was going on. The room remained mostly dark, like when I had fallen asleep, except for my TV screen in the corner of the room. But there was another light coming from my window. I looked to it and realized that my window was open. I normally had drapes covering the window when I slept, but they were partly moved to the side, and I could see my window was slid up. I then looked to the floor beneath the window, and a figure was there. When I saw it, I jumped back in my bed. That's when I saw the figure stand up, and it was Joe. I said nothing, probably because I was so shocked. He looked at me and started snickering a little bit, like a quiet laugh. Finally, I asked him what he was doing here. He didn't answer me at first, and just sort of stood there. Then he said, "Nothing." I really didn't know what to say. I guess I was thinking of what I should ask him out of the thousands of questions going around in my head, but my mind was still a little bit groggy. Before I got the chance though, he moved back over to the window. Then he jumped back outside and shut the window on his way out. I was then wide awake and went to the window and looked outside of it. I just barely saw Joe now walking away down the street. He must have gotten in easily through the window because I typically slept with my window open just a crack, but why would he even come to my house? I looked at the clock and it was almost 4 o'clock in the morning. It took me a little while, but eventually I was able to fall back asleep. When Monday came the following week, I planned to ask Joe what that was all about, but Joe wasn't at school that day. In fact, I didn't see Joe for the rest of the semester. I did see him during the next semester in the hallway a couple of times, but I didn't get the opportunity to talk to him. After that school year, he must have changed schools again because I never saw him again after that. In recent years, I've tried to look Joe up on social media, but I've never been able to find him. He has a fairly common name, and I don't know exactly what he would look like now or where he is. I think he was probably going to try and steal from me that night, but I caught him in the act. My name is Sophie, and this happened several years ago when I was in college. I went to a very large university in the United States. The college had quite a bit of students, and most places you would go throughout campus, you would see many different people. Throughout my first couple of years at the college, I made quite a few friends and would hang out with them all the time. However, Most of my college friends were not in the same major as me and were not in my classes. My classes were also very large, and there would be over 100 people in them. During the beginning of my junior year, I was sitting next to a girl named Jordan in one of my classes. She introduced herself to me the first day after I sat down. We were both sitting in the back because we only arrived a few moments before class started, and most of the seats were already taken. The next day, we both sat in the same places again. Over time, we spoke more and more and soon became good friends. We both had the same major, and Jordan told me that she had transferred from another university. As the semester went on, we started studying for our classes together in the library occasionally. Eventually, we hung out at each other's places sometimes. I lived in a house with 2 roommates, and Jordan had her own 1-bedroom apartment just off campus. One day, Jordan texted me after class and asked if I wanted to study later that night. I said yes because we did have a big test coming up. Jordan had told me that she had an off-campus job at a shoe store and asked if I could pick her up. She said her car was having problems and she had to walk to work that day. It wasn't a problem for me, and she gave me the address, which was roughly 5 minutes away from my house. Jordan said that she got off at 9 p.m., so I drove there and waited. I parked on the side of the street across from the store. It was a quieter side of town and an old shoe store that seemed like nobody went to. I had wondered why and how Jordan had gotten a job there. It was next door to a couple of other businesses, and I don't remember exactly what they were, but they weren't very popular. Across the street from them was like a wildlife park. I couldn't park directly across the street and had to parallel park a little ways down. I texted her that I was there and waited for a response. It was only 8:55, so I wasn't surprised when she didn't respond for the first couple of minutes. Then, 9 o'clock came and went, and there was still no response from Jordan. As I was sitting there waiting, suddenly I saw a man in front of my car. He must have walked out from the woods area that was next to the street. That was pretty creepy in itself. The man walked right up to my window and signaled for me to roll it down. I did roll it down, and the man leaned in. He asked if he could have a ride. This guy was already giving me the creeps. He had seemingly just emerged from the woods, and I had no clue who he was. He was wearing just a sweatshirt, jeans, and a beanie. Then he said to me he was going to need to get inside my car, or something like that. Then he started to reach inside. I followed my instincts, and I whipped the car into drive and sped out of there. The guy yelled a few things as I left, but I have no clue what they were. I drove to the next street, and my heart was racing. It wasn't until my phone started ringing that I remembered about Jordan. I hadn't even picked her up. I answered my phone, and it was Jordan. She asked me where I had gone and said that she was outside looking for me. I told her about what had happened and said that I was on my way back. I was now worried about Jordan. If there was some guy that wanted to get into my car, I feared Jordan might be in danger. I drove back around the block to the street where the shoe store was. When I got there, the street was very quiet and seemingly empty, other than a few cars parked on the side of the road. I didn't see the man, so that was good. I parked where I had been before, but was very nervous. As soon as I parked, I called Jordan to tell her that I was there. She answered and told me that she was crossing the street, and I saw her up a ways. I was really glad to see her. She walked to my car and then opened the passenger's door. She got like halfway inside and then said that she had forgotten something and quickly left the car and started going to the rear of my vehicle. She left the door wide open, and I leaned over to ask her what she was doing. But just then, the man appeared again. He came from the back side of my car and entered through the wide open door. I tried to put my car into drive again, but he grabbed my wrist. With my other hand, I opened my driver's door. We struggled for a few seconds with the man trying to grab me. I was able to make it just outside of my door, and when I did, I ran across the street. The man followed after me. All of the businesses and stores on that side of the street were now closed, and I had to run all the way down the sidewalk. I got around to the corner and could hear the man was still behind me. When I made it around the corner, I ran behind one of the buildings into an alleyway and hid there. I don't think he knew where I went, and he seemed to walk around the area for a bit and then turn back. I stayed there, hiding behind a dumpster, and I called the police, and then I called Jordan. She didn't answer, and I was really worried about her. I left my hiding spot to go back to the street. When I did, I saw that my car was now gone. I had left the keys in the ignition after all, so I wasn't too surprised. I called out for Jordan, but she wasn't answering me. I called her over and over on her phone as well, but she didn't pick up. Soon, the police arrived at the scene. I told them everything and about Jordan, who I couldn't locate. I answered a bunch of questions over the next hour or so, and then got a ride home. The next day, I was told that Jordan and the man had both been located. What surprised me was that they had been working together. It all made sense after I thought about it. I was really shocked though. I had considered her to be my best friend. My name is Emily. Many years ago, when I was a little kid, I had a best friend named Jenna. We met during kindergarten, I remember, and we liked a lot of the same things. We went to school together and hung out all the time for like 2 years. However, after second grade, Jenna and her family moved away, and I didn't get to see her anymore. Obviously, we were little kids, and this was a long time ago, so we weren't able to stay in touch. I ended up making a bunch of new friends over the years, and I sort of forgot about Jenna. I would occasionally remember her in the fun times that we had, and I would wonder how she was doing. Unfortunately, I never would know, and the older and busier I got, the less I would remember her. Well, about a year ago, out of nowhere, I received a friend request on Facebook from Jenna. I'll leave out her last name. At first, I didn't know who she was, but I soon remembered. I couldn't believe that she had found me. I didn't really recognize her in her picture because we were both adults now, and I hadn't seen her since we were like 7. I sent her a message, and soon after, we were messaging each other daily. Basically, we were just catching up and telling about ourselves now. It was kind of weird because we hadn't been friends in such a long time that it felt like I was meeting her for the first time, but also we had been such good friends in the past. She said that she lived in St. Louis now. I lived in Atlanta and I told her that, and she replied that she traveled there for work all the time. She said that she would be here in 2 weeks. I thought this was too good to be true and offered her to stay at my house. At first, she declined and she said that she would get a hotel, but I insisted. I thought that it would be a great idea. I lived by myself in a smaller house and was interested in spending time with my old best friend. 2 weeks later, she came into town and I welcomed her into my home. We got along great. We would both leave for work at the same time, and when we got off, I would show her cool places around the city and things like that. However, one night, I woke up to a noise inside my house. I was in my bedroom, and Jenna was staying in the one spare bedroom that I had. I quickly realized that she must be up for some reason. It was 3 a.m., and I rolled back over to go back to sleep. But the noises just seemed strange. The noises weren't of somebody just walking, but more the sounds of somebody moving something around. It sounded like it was coming from the living room. I got up quietly and made my way to the doorway and looked out. From there, I could see the hallway and part of the living room. In the hallway, there was 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and a closet. I looked out and saw the bathroom door was open and the light was off. The guest bedroom door was closed and that light was off as well. I started to wonder if Jenna was still sleeping and maybe somebody had broken in or something. I kept looking out and into the living room. I could now tell that that was where the noises were coming from. The noises continued on and off for another minute or so. Then someone came into my view. It didn't take me long to see that it was Jenna. I didn't know what she was doing though. For some reason, I didn't want to call out to her either. It looked as though she was looking for something. I decided to just go back to bed. The next morning, I asked Jenna if she had slept good. She said yes, and then I told her I thought I heard a noise in the house. I was basically trying to find out what she was doing without directly asking her. She said that was strange because she had slept right through the night. I told her it must have been nothing, but I was a little suspicious now. She was only staying with me for 2 more days at that point. The next night, I slept good and didn't wake up at all. But the one after that, which was Jenna's last night of staying there, was different. I woke up in the middle of the night once again. When I did, I heard some noises inside my bedroom this time. They were quiet, but loud enough to wake me up apparently. I looked over and saw Jenna crouched down, going through my desk drawers. I was going to say something, but I couldn't. For some reason, I decided to pretend that I was sleeping again. I could hear her trying to be quiet and going through my things. As I was laying there, I was able to get up the courage and I sat up and spoke. I said, "Jenna, what are you doing?" Jenna stopped and turned around. She looked shocked to see me. She then got up and walked quickly out of the room. She shut my door behind her. I then heard her go into my spare bedroom where she had been staying. Then, less than a minute later, she exited that room and walked out of the house. Then she drove off. I tried calling her, but she didn't answer. I had no idea what to do, so I went back to bed. The next morning, when I got up, I looked to see that she had blocked my number and blocked me on Facebook. I also later found that she had stolen several items from my house. Looking back at this, I should have never let her stay with me. For someone I hadn't seen in so long, it wasn't a smart idea. I also wonder how she found me again and why she did that to me.